In 1974, Mrs. Patterson kept a wooden paddle behind her desk. Today, that would trigger federal investigations. What else was normal then but illegal now? The reign of corporal punishment. The fear of the paddle was a shadow that loomed over every school day. At schools like Washington Elementary, it wasn't just a threat. It was a standard tool in the disciplinary kit. Teachers and principals had the authority to deliver physical punishment for anything from talking back to daydreaming in class. This wasn't a rare last resort measure. The methods were unforgettable: a thick wooden paddle that made you suck in your breath, a sharp rap across the knuckles with a ruler that sent a jolt up your arm, or the sting of a leather strap. The official line was that it built character and respect, a practice that is now banned and would be unthinkable in a modern classroom. For many kids, it just created a climate of fear. Even when the Supreme Court upheld the practice in its 1977 Ingraham versus Wright ruling, a shift was already underway. But the classroom wasn't the only place with hidden dangers. Once the bell rang for recess, you faced a whole new arena of glorious, unregulated peril. The Playground of Peril. If you survived the classroom, you then faced the playground, an arena built on unforgiving asphalt and hard-packed dirt. You haven't known true terror until you've clung for dear life to a heavy steel merry-go-round, spun at warp speed by older kids until it threatened to fling you off like a human projectile. And the slides were monuments to mayhem. These metal beasts were a fixture at nearly every school, from Lincoln Elementary to Roosevelt High. Towering metal structures that seemed to scrape the sky, often 8 to 12 feet high, which felt like a skyscraper to a 7-year-old. On a hot summer day, that sheet of metal became a searing griddle, hot enough to brand your thighs with a legitimate burn. There were no soft rubber mats to catch you, just gravel or asphalt. These liability nightmares are now a thing of the past, completely banned in favor of safer designs after a rise in serious injuries prompted new safety guidelines, like the first U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission Handbook in 1981. If you managed to survive the playground, your next challenge was surviving a class where you were handed a power tool. Shop class survival, when kids used real power tools. Forget today's supervised safety-first environments. At Roosevelt High, the 1970s shop class was a trial by fire. The room buzzed with the high-pitched scream of a table saw and the whine of a drill press, operated by 13-year-olds. Safety goggles were optional if they existed at all, and the teacher was often managing 20 other kids at once. It was a place where you learned to respect the machine because you saw firsthand what it could do. A misplaced finger or a moment of distraction was all it took. Nicks, cuts, and close calls weren't reasons to shut the program down. They were considered part of the learning experience. Today, the liability alone makes this kind of hands-off instruction illegal in practice. The idea was to build self-reliance, not to bubble wrap the world. This culture of accepted risk was most obvious in the freedom we were given as soon as we left the school building. The Unsupervised Kingdom. The most glaring difference between then and now was the sheer lack of adult supervision. We were granted a level of independence that would horrify many parents today. It was normal for a group of kids at Washington Elementary to disappear to the edge of the school grounds or into nearby woods to build their own forts. This meant using real tools, hammers, saws, and splintery scrap wood, all without a single adult looking over their shoulder. This level of unsupervised activity is strictly forbidden now, a legal and safety nightmare for any modern school. That freedom bled into recess, which was ruled by rough-and-tumble classics like Red Rover and Kill the Carrier, games with few rules and no referees. The only thing that stopped the game was the bell or an injury. That freedom gave us resilience, but back inside the classroom, there were certain personal items that were considered so rebellious they were treated like contraband. It was definitely a different era, right? What was the craziest thing you remember doing at school that would be totally banned today? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. Classroom contraband. Every generation has its forbidden items, but in the 70s, some of the contraband had a sharper edge. While teachers hated chewing gum, they were truly baffled by more dangerous items. Stink bombs let off in the hallway or M80 firecrackers set off in the parking lot were the kind of disruptive pranks that would result in expulsion and police involvement today. Comic books were seen as brain rot and confiscated on sight. But the most ironic banned item was the pocket calculator. As they became common in the mid to late 70s, teachers declared war on them, fearing this new technology would make students too lazy to do basic math. But no banned item caused as much noise or as much physical danger as the one toy that took over playgrounds for one brief, glorious, and incredibly loud moment. The Great Clacker Craze. For a brief, glorious, and incredibly loud moment in the early 70s, one toy ruled the playground. Clackers, two hard acrylic balls on a string rhythmically clacked together above and below your hand. They were the fidget spinners of their day, and their deafening sound was everywhere, from the blacktop at Washington Elementary to the hallways of Roosevelt High. But Clackers had a terrifying design flaw. When smashed together with enough force, those acrylic balls had a habit of shattering. They didn't just crack, they exploded, sending sharp plastic shrapnel flying in all directions. This predictably led to a wave of injuries, from cuts and bruises to serious eye damage. Schools banned them, and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission eventually regulated them off the market. They are, for all intents and purposes, illegal to sell as toys now. While dangerous toys were removed, other dangerous items were actually considered normal school supplies. Pocket knives and BB guns, when weapons were school supplies. In today's zero-tolerance world, it's unthinkable, but in the 1970s, many boys at Roosevelt High carried a pocket knife to school. It wasn't seen as a weapon, it was a tool. Its primary use? Sharpening your pencil into a perfectly fine point when the classroom sharpener failed. Teachers saw it as a sign of resourcefulness. This acceptance of weapons extended to the playground. Recess often involved intense games of cowboys and Indians, and it wasn't unusual for kids to bring their own cap guns or even BB guns from home to make the games feel more real. Bringing a BB gun, let alone a pocket knife, onto school grounds today is an act that would lead to immediate expulsion. In some schools, this went even further, with official programs like archery in PE class, where students were taught to handle real bows and arrows under a coach's supervision. Looking back at school in the 1970s is like peering into another dimension. A world of scorching metal slides, unsupervised power tools, and the looming threat of the paddle. It was a time defined by a sense of freedom and resilience that feels almost alien now. While nobody is asking for a return to asphalt playgrounds or letting kids bring BB guns to recess, it does make you wonder. In our drive to make everything perfectly safe and regulated, have we lost some of those lessons that come from taking risks, making mistakes, and navigating a world that wasn't wrapped in bubble wrap? The 70s kid survived, learned to be resourceful, and probably has a few good scars and even better stories to prove it. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane and remembered some of your own close calls from the schoolyard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. And be sure to share your own banned school memories in the comments. We can't wait to read them. Thanks for watching.